Welcome, everybody. If you're not speaking, if you could turn your mute on, that would be great so we don't get any feedback. So actually, Michelle, I'll mute you here. Oh, gotcha. All right. Well, welcome. We're so glad you're here tonight. We have 4 wonderful parents, and we're excited to hear their story. So our mission statement: Helping Parents Heal is a nonprofit organization dedicated to assisting bereaved parents to become shining light parents by providing support and resources to aid in the healing process. We go a step beyond other groups by allowing the open discussion of spiritual experiences and evidence for the afterlife in a non-dogmatic way. Affiliate groups welcome everyone, regardless of religious or non-religious background, and allow for open dialogue. Attendance today at the Helping Parents Heal meeting is voluntary, and we are here for the benefit of learning from and sharing with other parents whose child has passed away. It is understood that our discussions are intended to be confidential and not designed to replace traditional therapy or spiritual counseling. However, these Zoom meetings are very healing to parents all over the world, and they are all posted on YouTube so that affiliate members who are not in our time zone can also watch. Helping Parents Heal offers a wide variety of speakers to allow parents to be informed about many possible ways to heal, to connect with their children, and to learn about the afterlife. The views expressed by our guests do not necessarily reflect those of Helping Parents Heal, and we ask that you take from their presentations whatever may benefit you personally. So welcome, everybody. And Mark, it's all yours.
Thank you very much, and welcome, everyone. We have 4 wonderful Shining Light parents this evening, and I'm very grateful for them being with us, sharing what they've learned the hard way, of course, but that can be a very powerful way. So I use the word Shining Light parents and use the definition for those who haven't heard that term. So in the beginning, parents are obviously, understandably, very grieved. Elizabeth would like us to move away from the word bereaved, considers to be one of the ugliest or saddest words out there. So we'll say deeply grieved. And of course you are after a child passes. And that means parents are feeling what are called lower energy emotions: anger, sadness, loneliness, self-blame, guilt, all sorts of things. Now, calling them lower energy emotions isn't a judgment, it's not a criticism. That's just a rating using scales like people like David Hawkins, MD, PhD, author of Power versus Force. Well, over time, some parents heal, transform, in large part to a group like Helping Parents Heal. And so they move then along the spectrum to more higher energy emotions, ways of being: love, peace, joy, gratitude, in part because they recognize that they can perceive their children best when they're on a similar wavelength as their child, because their children are in realms characterized by those higher energy emotions, the higher energies. Also, these parents want to create more meaning out of their child's life and passing, honor their children, find silver linings, serve others in their children's name. So there's all sorts of reasons they become these amazing shining light parents. Now, that doesn't mean their lives are perfect. They still have their sad times and so on. But all in all, they have come a long way from where they were initially. So I'm so honored to conduct these interviews and hear them share their wisdom and how they got to this point and so on. So to learn more about that journey toward being a shining light parent, see article number 82 at my website, soulproof.com. Now, I just want to share some resources. And Elizabeth recently put on the Helping Parents Heal page a lot of helpful information. So if you go to helpingparentsheal.org and then find the top tab which says YouTube videos, click on that, and the first sub-tab says Affiliate Leader and Caring Listener Interviews. First, you'll see a picture of myself and this supermodel beside me. And then below that, links for a number of things. All the YouTube videos of all the interviews we've done and will do through February. An affiliate leader list. So if you aren't attending a local group, you can find one close to you and attend. Caring listeners, a group of about 35 amazing Shining Light parents who are willing to, at no charge, listen, provide input, what worked for them, and become a friend and help you through this journey. There's a calendar of online events, so you can see almost every evening one or more meetings and events, mediums, and all sorts of amazing people. We've posted the links for 4 experiential sessions that I've done for helping parents heal, so that you can find them. In the past, we said they're recorded somewhere, but now here they are, the links. And those are on these are the 4 most common ones I find help parents. Facilitated after-death communication, how to increase the chance of perceiving your children, holistic breathing technique, about pre-birth planning to consider whether you might have volunteered for the possibility of this and other tough spots in your life. And then finally, Ask Your Soul, God, and Angels. And the name of that describes what it does. And then soon it will list 11 free articles that answer the most commonly asked questions and tough challenges. So all that, again, is there on that one page. So you have all sorts of amazing resources. With that, we will begin with the interviews, and Heather has volunteered to go first. Heather, tell us, please, about your dear Xavier, his life and passing.
Xavier Alexander Mercado. He was born to us on February 3rd, 2020. It was a pretty easy labor. First thing the doctor said when he came out, he's like, he's cute. And he gave him to me, and he literally picked up his head and just looked at me. And I was like, okay. So we started calling him Benjamin Button because he would just stare through us. Like, he had such an old soul. And as unfortunate, COVID was kind of a blessing for us because I was furloughed due to everything being so new. So I got to spend all my time with him. Otherwise, I would have went to work sooner. I went back to work for 3 days and was furloughed. Well, Xavier ended up crossing over shortly after, 3 days shy of becoming 5 months from SIDS. During a nap while I was at work. So I came home to that. And I don't know. I just sat still. I just sat so very still. I think 9 days, 10 days, I don't know, somewhere between that and the service. Sat outside the whole time. I remember I just sat, I felt with God, with him. I just I couldn't let go of that short period of time. I couldn't let go of, okay, there's a lesson here. I had no idea what that lesson was, but I sat with it and just soaked up everything. He had us hold him all the time, but he wasn't colicky. He just wanted to be with us, but he would stare at us. And with that being said, because of the time, the news would be on sometimes, and we'd all have our opinions around the house because he was our baby of the bunch. My oldest was in his 20s, so there's quite a age gap there. Right. And he would just look at us like, you guys are stupid. And I'd say, okay, baby, we'll be quiet. We're stupid here. But I just held on to all of that. And I even recall never being able to picture him theoretically grown up, as we all with our kids, when they're 5 or when they're, you know, a young adult. Like I just was never able to with him. And it didn't scare me, but in hindsight, with the time frame being so short, it sat with me. And I never once was mad at God or creator, because I always knew it was bigger than me. Now I definitely had an angry face, you know, throughout my grieving, but it wasn't like a why me. But I searched high and low. Like I found soul proof before I found helping parents heal. And the articles literally carried me through if I couldn't sleep, or because I just wanted to know. I wanted to know. And I with his service, I had a shaman there and doing the drumming, because and at the time I wasn't a practicing shaman, but I knew I needed those beats to help me walk, or I would never been able to walk. And I don't know, that's kind of, I could go on and on, but that's my best description of Xavier. And I try to always honor him with everything I do. Everything, no matter what I do. I'm not perfect, but I was okay, I'm here. I'd rather not be here. I'd rather him be here. And you know me, but I'm here. Okay, I'm here. All right, what's the mission? What's my purpose? It's clearly not about me. And that's him. That's Xavier in a whole.
Wow, that's a lot. You bring up some really good points, Heather. I just want to highlight for people watching this. First of all, she illustrates how, even at a very young age, Xavier was obviously special, different, you know, looking through them, and just this joyful little child. And whether the child's 10 or 20 or 30, we hear that same sort of thing. It's a sign that they are more evolved souls. So they don't need to do the whole earthly thing. Secondly, sharing that you had a premonition, a knowing at some level that he wasn't going to live old, to an old age. And I've always feel like that's helps prepare the parents, you know, for what's such a tough shock. And then the third thing is how you shifted so quickly. You're doing shamanic work now, you say?
Yeah. It's
God. I mean,
the only way I can.
Yeah.
You know, I saw it like a fork in the road of, okay, I can accept this.
Yeah. Yeah.
Whatever it is. I still don't know what it is a lot. Or go the other way of pretending everything's okay. You know, it's not my first time with grief. So I lost my mother, you know, years prior. And that was more, my older ones were young. So I was like, keep moving, keep, you know, and I thought I handled it okay, but I knew I needed help with this, and I needed all I could get right away. I was just like, I was broke at the knees. I felt, this is it. This is it. Okay, what is it? And I just stayed very open, and I still have. Yeah.
Awesome. So how did you discover helping parents heal?
I was on my mission, but I wasn't that day. I think I was like, okay, I'm going to do nothing. So I was on Amazon Prime, and I came across the Life After Life, Mom, Can You Hear Me? And it was just like validation of, so at that point I was so early on, and I was linked up with a couple parents like us, but not, okay, I have a rainbow baby too. She doesn't like me talking too much. I'm sorry. But I heard all the stories, and I immediately went to the website afterwards, and I was utilizing all of the resources. I ended up calling a caring listener. I looked up all of the affiliate groups. Hence, there wasn't any in Wisconsin. And I was given the packet we get where all the support groups to go to. And there wasn't anything like this here. So I'm like, we need this. We need this here.
And how long after Xavier passed did you start a group?
Maybe like a year and a half, a year.
Good
Yeah.
job. Okay. So share with us, please, what you've learned. Again, it's been about 3 years since
Yeah.
you changed worlds. So what have you learned about how you can best perceive him, sense
Um,
his presence?
holding space, and just being quiet. For me, it's the yoga mat of just, I surrender it so I can, because I'm a chatterbox and internally too, and it gets so busy. So I stop. I just stop. And it's uncomfortable, but I sit. And usually after a few minutes, I start settling, my heart opens, because when your heart's closed, you can't receive you can receive the messages, but it's not as easy. For me, when I finally surrender and sit, it's like a telepathic kind of a vibration. I always get that validation where I'm like, mama's trying, but mama's hurting, I'm really sad. And I was at a sound healing one time, and I literally heard at some point towards the end of it, like, Mom, I'm okay, everything's okay, and it didn't make sense. None of it makes sense. There's no explanation, but it's that inner knowing. Like, it's like, okay, I just know. And I see little things, little colors, or the angel numbers. And it's when I had a psychic reading where she said he loves the color yellow and dandelions. And when I become open, all of a sudden I'll start seeing yellow. I'm not even looking for it. And it's like, oh, it's yellow. And then if I kind of doubt it, there's some more yellow. And then it's like, I'll look and it's like, okay. And I'm literally not looking for the yellow, but it happens so where I'm like, okay. Let me pause and be
Good.
open.
Powerful. So what are 3 things you've learned that you would like to share with other parents about how to get through this journey best shape as possible?
Don't listen to anyone else. I mean, if it resonates with your heart and soul and it's soothing, but people have their opinions, just like I had a shaman at the funeral. Of course, people let me know, a lot of people had raised eyebrows, or people's beliefs, and they have the right to believe, and they just care for us. But if you don't go, this is one of those, if you don't go through it, you don't understand it. And I think it's like 2 losses. We don't lose our children, but we lose the way we want them. And then we lose a lot of the other relationships too, because when they see us, they're just like, that's what they see, and they don't want to upset us. And then we're basically pretending to be normal to make them feel comfortable. That's what triggered a lot of the anger phase in me with grieving. But who cares? They love you. They're doing the best they can, but you got to trust yourself. Trust that small, still feeling voice. Regardless, you'll know it. And I feel like it's so simple to just be still. And you think I have this world of problems, but that one simple little step can improve this moment, which can improve the next moment. And, it's a lot of 2 steps forward, 2 steps back, but it's still improvement. And I think to hold space for ourselves, and give us that simple moment and trust the next moment with being still, it'll make a little more sense to you. The feeling will be open a little more instead of being resistant. I've done that too. I think we kind of resist it. We're just resisting it for lots of reasons, maybe not even intentionally. Just take that 5 minutes. We all have that 5 minutes, regardless of how busy we are. Take that 5 minutes and surrender it. Just say those. For me, that was the easiest. So I surrender, and it just opens it up, and it just makes it a little more bearable in that moment. And then you have the next moment.
Powerful. I just felt it kind of came out of me saying, thank you, Xavier, for helping this wise woman awaken. And I mean, you're young. Think of all the good you're going to share with others in this process. So awesome. What is your belief or knowing about there being a timing, a meaning behind even something as seemingly horrible as a child's passing?
I believe that we all sign up for this mission of what we have, and the lessons come and the tough lessons too. And, you know, me personally, I never want to return. I'd like to evolve into some kind of ascended master alongside Xavier and help humanity and the rest of the people. But there's a lesson in it, and just trust the process enough to be able to learn the lesson. I feel.
So are you saying you think there is a timing and a meaning, even though it doesn't seem like it initially?
Even though it sucks, yep, I
Yeah.
do. I think we come and choose. I think he chose, I'm going back for a short mission, you know, and some others like, no, I'm going back for a long mission. We know some of those people who beat all odds. They should have passed on and they didn't, you know, and doctors can't explain it. It's because they're still here. We all sign up for that. That's I'm not an expert on it, but that's how I feel.
You're pretty damn close. Thank you. That was wonderful. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Lynn, you are up next, dear. Tell us about your beloved Ryan, his life and passing, please.
Yes, thank you for having me, and I think this is a wonderful call that you're having. My son Ryan was 26 when he passed, February 25th of 2019, so nearly 5 years ago. He was my oldest, very empathetic. He had been just coming out onto his own. He graduated from Michigan State University, got a job helping disadvantaged kids, teaching them, was coaching football. He loved football. He was a football player his entire life. That was his love. And he made a bad decision nearly 5 years ago. He took a Xanax, and it was laced with fentanyl, unbeknownst to all of us. And he passed through an accidental fentanyl poisoning on my couch. I did CPR, called 911, and just couldn't get him back in time. So I had a lot of guilt. If I had waken him up, 15 minutes earlier, I maybe could have saved him, but I realized through all of this, we have to let go of that. It's nothing I could have done could have changed it, but I did have to survive going through a lot of guilt. What if? And yeah, so that is nearly 5 years ago.
Yep. And are you aware of why he took the Xanax? Was he feeling anxious or trouble sleeping?
Yeah, he had my thought, again, he had a best friend that was in a car accident and nearly died and was in the hospital. And like I said, he was always very empathetic and felt very deeply and took a Xanax.
Yep. You said the E word, empathetic. And so, yes, many of these kids who pass are sensitive, empathic. They can feel the emotions of others, and they can feel the cruelty of our planet. You know how it is. And so that's one reason some of them, a lot of them, use alcohol, use different drugs. They're trying to self-medicate. They're trying to cope. And I fault, I'll say, my generation for not providing a better infrastructure. I don't think religion's done a very good job in many ways, to help these kids, to provide important information about self-care, about the big picture of life. So we certainly are motivated to work on that. The other thing I appreciate you sharing right off the bat, Lynn, is about the guilt. I would say that's the number one lower energy emotion that parents feel. And you said exactly, it go through, if only I would have done this, should have, and it can destroy yourself. So thank you for sharing that. I mentioned in the intro, the holistic breathing technique. I talk about it in article number 70 at soulproof.com. So that's one of the free experiential videos that everyone can watch, because that's the most powerful way I know, 45 minutes of deep, noisy, diaphragmatic breathing to release that guilt and anger and just all those emotions that are so predictable and you don't want to carry around. So thank you. So how did you discover helping parents heal, and how did they help you?
Yeah, that's a great question. Early on, I initially reached out and was looking for grief groups, and I joined another group that I'm not going to mention the name. I'm sure they're very helpful for some people, but it wasn't my tribe. But the very first meeting that I went to, and I was very fresh into it, I was only a few weeks into it. And the first woman I met in that group walked up to me, put out her hand and said, "Hi, my name is so-and-so. My son died 14 years ago and it never gets any better."
Oh, great.
And I was horrified at hearing that. And I just thought, how can you say that? And I'm in that instant, I said, "No, not me. If you want to stay down there, you can stay there, but I'm not going to stay there." And so for that particular grief group, they said, give it at least 3 sessions. And so I did. I went back 3 times, and they were constantly stuck in their story. There would be people there years into it telling the story over and over. And I left feeling worse than when I began. So I gave it 3 tries. I quit, and I went on searching for other groups. I wanted to do something where I wasn't stuck in the grief. I wanted to climb out of that hole, that nightmare. And so did a lot of research, did a lot of YouTubing, a lot of podcasts, and came upon Helping Parents Heal. And so I went to, and being in California, I went to the Ventura group, went to the San Diego group a couple of times. There was nothing in LA. And both of those chapters are hours apart. So I called Elizabeth and I said, I know I'm really fresh, but I think we really need to start an LA group. And she said, "You're absolutely right. And we have 2 other members, Anna and Dolores. I'd like you to meet so you can start to form a group in LA." And we did that. So we started the group. I think probably just under a year before we had our first meeting. And then we got hit with COVID. And then we're back to meeting in person again.
Yeah. Well, excellent to jump in and help so quickly. Yeah, I before I started helping parents heal 10 years ago, I would talk at other grieving groups, and they sat in a circle, like you said. It was all talk about the death and the sadness, and they would pass around a heavy rock to each other, whoever held the rock. And I was like, this is not good energy. I'm sure we can do better than that. So yeah, no heavy rocks for this group. So what have you learned, Lynn, about how you can optimally sense Ryan's presence since he changed worlds?
There's no one way. I got into meditation, and I've had some pretty incredible experiences, Reiki. And I truly think that sometimes spirit will download messages. I don't see Ryan, I don't really hear him, but I feel like I have some downloads. And I'll give you, one example. I needed very badly to hear a recording, and I didn't have any iPods. And I thought, okay, I'll just go to Best Buy tomorrow and get the iPods. Am I saying that right? The earbuds.
Yeah, earbuds.
And I was really upset I didn't have any earbuds. I'll have to wait till tomorrow. I'll go to Best Buy. And instantly I had this download. It's like, go to the garage. And I had an instant need to go into the garage, open the cabinet, pull out my son's backpack that I still had, because I wanted to give it away. I don't know what I wanted, but it was an instant. Go in the garage, pull it out. I reached in, and there was brand new earbuds in the bottom. So
Wow.
I feel like these kind of downloads, I get another story real quickly that was so powerful was I'm a believer of keeping things that bring you happiness as far as memories, and getting rid of the things that bring you sadness. For me, the cards from the service, all those sympathy cards bring me sadness, and I still have them, but I wanted to get a poem, a really beautiful poem from one of them. And so about 2 months ago, I was going through them, looking for the poem, but going and reading it took me really to a dark, sad place that I hadn't been in for a long time. So I thought, I'm not ready for that. I'm gonna put that away. But I was really, really sad. And so I left that, and I was looking for some photographs and decluttering them. And I came across Ryan's yearbook when he was dating a girl called Tasia. They were, the love of their life in high school. And I hadn't seen Tasia in 5 years. And I got really sad, and I go, God, I know they went their separate ways. They broke up long ago. You know, she's since been married and had 2 kids, but boy, I haven't heard from her in 5 years. I just wish I can hear from her. Went to bed crying. I woke up to a text from Tasia saying, I had a dream about you last night. Are you okay? Blew me away. Haven't heard from her in 5 years. The timing was, this can't be a coincidence. So I met with her and I said, tell me about your dream. And she said, I hear from Ryan. I see Ryan. I dream about him. But last night was the first night that he ever said to me, he took my hands and said, I got you this far. Now I need you to do something for me. My mom needs you.
Oh my
And so those
gosh.
are the kinds of ways that I don't see, hear from him, but I get downloads and I get like other people saying, hey, I got a dream, got a message for you.
Yeah, book transcribers, pay attention to that story, please. Wow, and thank you for bringing up that parents may sense their children in different ways. You know, we're so visually oriented, and people say, well, I've never seen him or her, but you can hear them, you can feel their presence, or you can just have an inner knowing, and they're all very meaningful. Well, what are 3 things you've learned along the way, Lynn, that you'd like to pass on to other parents?
Yeah, the first thing, and it comes back from the woman that came to me and shook my hand and says it never gets any better. It's been 14 years. That's just not true. It's a journey. It's a lot of work. But I can tell you that things can get better. They will get better. You have to put in the effort and you can find joy again. I have found joy again. Not every day is perfect. There's going to be good days, bad days. But, you know, I can honestly say that I've been able to open my heart and find joy in life again. So that is number one. The second thing that I've also heard in my journey, again, in my first year, sometimes people might say, oh, the second year is the hardest. And that one I heard that when I'm in the first year also scared me, just like the woman that said it never gets better. And so I'm here to say that's not true. And I don't want to dismiss people that maybe did have a hard second year, because maybe some people do, but that was not my experience. So I would just like to share with people, if you hear that, don't believe it. It's certainly not true for a lot of people. The last thing I want to mention is that if you can change the meaning of something to a more positive meaning as opposed to a negative meaning, I would encourage you to do that. And by that, I mean, you know, human beings, we're all meaning-making machines. Something happens and we give meaning to it. And early on, I used to get so upset when I would get letters addressed to Ryan at my house. And I would look at them and I go, don't they know that he died? Why are they sending me letters? Well, to stop sending me letters. And I got to a certain point, it's like, why am I getting upset? They don't know. And so I flipped on a switch, and I intentionally said, instead of getting upset, I'm just going to call it a God wink. I'm going to call this hello from heaven. And so instead of getting upset now, I just get the letter, I kiss it, and I toss it away. And I'm not in that kind of self-perpetual pain. So to the extent that you can do that, and I get it early on, it's really tough, but catch yourself if you can when you put meaning into something that doesn't need to be there.
Powerful. Yeah, flip a switch. And that's very much what it's like. All the parents I've interviewed who've been shining lights, they say at some point, yeah, it's a decision. It's a moment by moment. Choose to focus on the positive. Thank you for that. So what are your beliefs or knowing about there being a timing and meaning behind something like this?
Yeah, there is something greater than all of us. I firmly believe that. And in some way, I believed I was being primed for this. 3 years before Ryan passed, I went on a meditation retreat in Bali, and I learned to meditate. I learned to breathe. I learned about soul contract. I had never heard of that before. And so I felt like I was indoctrinated and kind of prepared for this. And so when I heard after Ryan passed the word soul contract, I knew exactly what that was. And so I had, believed it. And I also feel like Ryan knew before he was going to pass, because he would say certain things, that led me to believe like he's got some knowing in the back of his mind that something's going to happen. He couldn't state the facts, but there were some comments that it's like, I think somewhere his spirit knew that that time was coming, that exit point was coming along.
Mhm. Okay, so you have some peace in knowing about that.
Yes.
Ah, beautiful. Thank you very much for all your sharing there, Lynn.
Very welcome.
Dolores, you're up next.
Okay.
Tell us, dear, about your beloved Eric, his life and passing.
Eric is the youngest of my 4 children. When I think about some of my favorite things about Eric, it's just that he was a drummer. My most joyful times in my life were going to the gigs that his band would play. He bought his own drum kit when he was 11, saved his own money, practiced every single day. It never bothered me ever. I was grateful. It was joyful that that was his soul. That's who he was. And still is, I know, there as a musician. As I know so many of our children are, that I hear these stories, so compassionate, so caring, kind. People had beautiful things to say about him during the services after his passing. Funny, of course, because I think that's part of the beauty of it all. And very responsible. So when he was still living at home, he and his old sister that was just older than him, the other 2 were living out of the home at that point. He had just started a new job. He had already graduated from college 2 years prior. He as a communication studies major. And he was so excited about this job. It was finally a real job with a real paycheck. And this was his 9th day on the job, and typical of him, he said, Mom, I'm gonna go out to dinner with my new coworkers, got to get to know them. And he cared about really getting to know people. And I said, that's great. As it turned out, he didn't come home when I thought he would, and I was texting him and my daughter was texting him. And sadly, that next morning at 5:30 or so in the morning, when I had gotten up to go to work and he wasn't in his room, there was a loud knock at the door telling us that he had been in a car accident, solo car accident. No, we never really understood why he veered off and hit. I won't go into the total detail, but he had this accident. There was nobody else involved. So we were in, just as you all know, it was just so sudden. It was unbelievable. And as some of the other moms just mentioned, I was just pitched into this deep, dark abyss. I felt like I was drowning. There was no light. There was no joy. How could I ever find joy again? I had no idea how. But I will say that I never thought I wouldn't. I just didn't know how. So I never really said I will never find joy again. It was this strange, it's hard to explain, but there was something that somehow I knew there was a way and I was going to find it. And as the other moms have mentioned, it was all about, I had a therapist, research, read books, talk to people, listen to podcasts, learn about what is going on here. I always have had a deep belief in God. I still do. I was angry, but I didn't lose any faith. I said, tell me what's going on. And over time, I believe that prayer was answered.
Wow, good point. That parents can feel angry toward life, toward God, toward themselves, but still have faith. Those can coexist. Good point. And by the way, for what it's worth, when you said we don't know why he veered off, I had kind of an inner feeling of he swerved to not hit an animal. What popped in. So how did you discover helping parents heal, and how did they help you initially?
Yeah, I find it's an interesting story. I believe one of those coincidences, right? That's not really a coincidence. I about 7 or 8 months after I was already in therapy and had kind of connected with a couple of grief groups. But at about 8 or months after, I get a friend request from someone on Facebook. I didn't recognize this person. So, and I don't just accept. It's like, well, I don't know who you are. And then I get a message. So I did read the message, who said, I'm your cousin's cousin on the other side. And our mutual cousin told me, about your son. And I'm in this group called Helping Parents Heal. And I think, I think it'd be a great idea for you to find out more, or, get to involved. So we did end up talking on the phone. And I did feel like, wow, that it just the way it all comes, right? I believe it was supposed to, obviously I was supposed to be part of this group. And so it was, this was the group, like I think Lynn mentioned, this is my tribe. Other groups are great and have other wonderful things to offer, but this language of afterlife, I needed that discussion because there is more. I know that there's more, and I wanted to find out as much as I possibly could. And that was a while back. By the way, this was 2017, end of 2017, because Eric passed in May of 2017, and I believe I found Helping Parents Heal about December. And it was much smaller now. It's really grown so much, and understandably, it has. Hearing people speak on these weekly Zoom meetings, the different speakers, the mediums. I was first introduced, I didn't know, I had never had anything to do with a medium before, but getting validations through some mediums that were absolutely true and verifiable. And so, similar to what Lynn was saying, there was no one in the Los Angeles area. There's no group. Told Elizabeth, she said, start a group, and told me about Lynn and Anna.
Yeah.
And so we have, yeah.
Powerful. Started a group the same year he passed. And by the way, Lynn, we've done a lot of interviews and asked, how did you find out about Helping Parents Heal? But I don't think we've heard it from my cousin's cousin.
I think that's a first, Dolores.
Yeah.
That's great. So what have you learned about how you can best sense Eric's living presence?
Well, first of all, there have been many signs and connections and dreams, and I'm very grateful. In the beginning, I didn't have a clue. I had no idea it was possible, but that whole first painful, brutal week, I was crying, of course, daily, and talking to Eric. I mean, I talked to him immediately. I knew he was around. I knew he could hear me, but I didn't know I could hear back. And telling him how much I needed a hug. And what happened at about maybe the 10th day is I went to a market, and outside there were these young people at tables taking donations for a very worthy cause, which I was very familiar with because it was through our school. I'm a retired elementary school teacher. And I thought, I'm going to make a donation. I come out after, go to this young man who's the same age, height, build, coloring of my son, Eric, and talked to him and said, I'm going to make a donation. He was very friendly, like Eric. And after he gave me the receipt, he said, how about a hug? No one has ever asked that at one of those tables outside the store before or since.
Mm-hmm.
The second he said that, I knew it was Eric. Somehow I had been asking, and this was his way of giving me a hug. And I said, I'll always take a hug. And I hugged him and felt like I was hugging my son.
Nice.
Though, a quick hug. And I walked away going, what just happened? That was Eric. And there are just those kinds of things that happen that they don't have to, that was just clear to me. And someone else would say, no, it wasn't. But yes, it was. It was. And I know that. And I have had so many other things. And I could go on, and I won't go on to too many, but I must say that, yes, I have meditated ever since about 5 years ago, every day, twice a day. I like it. I know it's not everyone's thing. It brings me such peace, and I feel close to Eric. When I'm in the car listening to music, because again, we have that connection. Eric is right there with me when I hear the drums. That's Eric playing the drums. I really feel that. And I we still have his room. We haven't needed it for anything else. I'll sit in there every single night and talk to him, and I feel him. And he's around. He gives me awesome license plate messages as
Mhm.
well.
Mhm.
So it's just undoubted, there's no doubt.
Great, beautiful. Yeah, for you and others who may have had a similar experience, that feeling Eric and this other young man, my best sense of that after studying this field for 50 years is that Eric's solar energy could have temporarily merged into that of this other young man with his permission on a solar energetic level.
Yep.
And that's why you felt that closeness, even though that guy wasn't obviously the physical Eric.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I believe that. I believe that.
So, what are 3 things you've learned that you'd like to pass on to others, Dolores?
Okay. Yes. One thing is that I have found that if you set the intention to heal, then you will. If you set the intention not to heal, then you won't. I knew from the beginning that somehow I was going to figure this out. I do want to say that healing is a lifelong journey. It's not like one day I'm going to wake up and go, oh, okay, I'm done. I'm healed. This journey that we are all on, it will continue to evolve. And it's really, it's just something that I've learned that grief and joy can coexist as well. I didn't know that was possible in the beginning. It took me a long time, and that came to me gradually. So many things came to me gradually, but I guess maybe I was patient with it, if you can say that. And also, and I think someone else had mentioned this, that your grief journey is your own. You don't need to listen. You don't need to compare it for sure to anyone else's journey, what they're experiencing or what kind of signs they're getting, or whatever. It's your own. Your child is with you. And those quiet times, nature is another beautiful way of connecting with Eric for me. And I think it's just so healing. And if you are able to just take the time to just sit quietly and be somewhere beautiful, and that's where you will have your own personal experience and connection with your child, unlike anyone else's.
Mhm. Great. And finally, where are you with the question of there being a timing and a meaning behind something as seemingly senseless as this?
In the beginning, people would say, oh, it was his time, right? And that would make me angry. I didn't want to hear that. But over time, with all the reading I did, all the listening, as I mentioned, just about afterlife, about near-death experiencers, medium readings or spiritual. I have a lot of just spiritual, I don't want to call it religious, but just other religions and other cultures and traditions. And I have come to believe that, yes, we all do have a certain time that's planned. And I don't think it's just God's plan. I think we plan it with kind of, sort of, if that makes any sense. That's just my feeling. And the only thing that I did get, but it was tiny and yet it had a lot of meaning, was that very last day that Eric walked out of the house to go to work. We always go to the door and say goodbye and give the kiss and all. That's just what we do. And I said goodbye, and he goes down the two little steps of the tiny porch, and he said goodbye. And he took 2 steps and he looked back at me and said goodbye a second time. And I noticed it. I said, well, never done that before. I wonder why he would say goodbye again. And when we got that news, that terrible news that he had his accident, it was the first thing I thought of.
Mm, yeah.
And I thought, okay, he knew, his soul knew. And it was his way of letting me know, so that when I thought of it later, I understand that was to be. And I think his work was done. And I think he affected so many people and continues to do so, sending out so much love that comes from him. So his work is not, his physical work was done, and it continues, right?
Yeah. Wow. Beautiful, Dolores. I've been looking forward to talking with you. Dolores and I have worked together for years. She's one of our caring listeners. So thank you for all you're doing.
Thanks so much.
Anna, you are up next, please, and tell us about Alessandro, his life and passing.
Hi, well, thank you for letting me share about Alessandro. Alessandro, he was born preemie. He was 6 months. I was 6 months pregnant when he was born. So, and it was a touch and go when he was born. It was they didn't give me too much hope of him surviving. He was in the hospital for 3 months total, like 2 months, 1 month critical. Then he started, getting better and passing to a different stage. Finally, he made it. And his name Alessandro actually was picked out of a bowl because we put several different names because we needed to name him before he was transferred to another hospital for his survival, because the hospital he was born didn't have the equipment necessary for preemies to keep him alive. So I had picked Sebastian, Leonardo, Andrea, and Alessandro. So the one that comes out was Alessandro. When I used to tell him the story, he's like, "Oh my God, you should have picked a shorter name with no S's," because he lost his hearing after he was born. He had to save his life throughout that stay in the hospital. He caught an infection, and to save his life, they had to give him an antibiotic. And one of the side effects, I was told, they told me many things, but thankfully, it was just a hearing loss. And so, of course, the hearing loss, the high pitch, low pitch, stuff like that, like the S's, it was hard for him to learn and hear the S sound. And then, so his name was Alessandro Esquivel. So all these S's. But he never learned to sign, because since he was when he started school, and when we found out that he was that he had the hearing loss, I was going to put him in a total communication program, like sign language and oral. But he was a very clever kid since he was born. He was a very smart kid. And he thought he learned, what, I can get things by signing and not making an effort to speak. Because it is, it's training, right? So that's why I decided, okay, no. Because I knew he could say the words, but he just didn't want to say them. He just started signing instead. So I pulled him out of the program and found John Tracy Clinic, where it's a nonprofit organization for deaf children and hard of hearing children. They teach oral education, and then so from then on, he started school since he was 2.5, and he did very well all his life. Very charming. Everybody loved Alessandro because he was very, he had a very twisted sense of humor, and I don't know, he was very special. All the teachers loved him, always had something to say, loved him. And then at the same time, when he was in pre-K, he got suspended 2 days because he kicked the teacher in the shin.
So tell me, dear, what led to his passing?
Well, when he graduated from high school, he went on to UC Santa Barbara. He was a sophomore, and UC Santa Barbara, he was out partying one night. He was actually gonna leave UC Santa Barbara, and on his last night there, I was gonna pick him up. he just started a semester, September. In October, I said, okay, you know what, Alessandro, you are not paying attention, because he was very smart and he was not doing well in school because I guess he was dealing with his deafness and the self-medicating with alcohol and stuff. So he was just partying crazy. So I told him, okay, that's it. You're coming back home. He says, I'm going to go out for a last, hooray, drinking, friends. And I was going to pick him up on Saturday. So Saturday, on my way to pick him up, I get the phone call from my brother, because the police department from Downey went to my house to notify us that the sheriffs in Santa Barbara found Alessandro dead at the bottom of a cliff. So he fell off a cliff. And nobody, up to this day, nobody's come forward to say what happened. Oh, I know what happened because of Alessandro telling me through a medium, first of all, he told me after he passed, I will step outside my house and sat on the steps, and to smoke, and I would ask him and I was wondering, did you do it? I mean, did you jump? I had that uncertainty. I didn't know if he had actually taken his life or was it an accident. And I kept hearing it was an accident. It was an accident, Mom. It was an accident. But again, I was not a very religious. I was what you can call agnostic. So I just didn't know if it was me answering myself. I didn't know about, much about the afterlife or anything, although I had experiences before Alessandro died.
Mm-hmm.
That, people moving things around in my house. And I was like, what? Anyway, so when I go to see a medium, my best friend texts me to a medium, and then he tells her to tell me that it was an accident, Mom. I'm okay. And then what Dolores mentioned, that when people tells you, oh, it was his time, and you don't like to hear that. Well, he told me it was meant to be, Mom. We've done this before, but this time it was my time.
Yeah, well, we're kind of jumping ahead there, but before we get to the last question, how did you find helping parents heal?
Okay, so that best friend, her sister-in-law, she's the manager of the funeral home where Alessandro was picked up, the funeral home that picked up Alessandro from the cliff. I don't know how, but she told me about, I don't know how she knows about him. Well, I guess because she works at the funeral house and she deals with, death all the time. And so she put me in touch with the Ventura chapter. I think there's a chapter in Ventura.
Mm-hmm.
So I didn't go there. I don't know the reason why I didn't go up there, because my friend lives there. I could have gone there, but then I decided to go to San Diego. And then I started going to San Diego meetings, and that's when I met Lynn. Lynn and I drove there one time, and then we were brainstorm, let's open one local that we can, local people from the area in LA can just
Nice.
Have another place to go.
As Dolores said, you three have quite the tribe there. So what have you learned over time about how you can best sense Alessandro's presence?
I've had many different experiences. I mean, I'm not good at meditating. But when I've done it, I feel him. I do have this connection with him and conversations, but he comes to me in dreams, not very often. It was more at the beginning. He was more active at the beginning, just when he had passed. Now it's sometimes maybe because maybe because my energy is a little bit low right now, but he still sends me messages through people, like dreams, or I don't know, where I'm ordering these tacos for his birthday, and the taco lady tells me, oh, I'm getting a message. I mean, do you know so-and-so? It's all of a sudden, I didn't even know she was intuitive or has this, thing that she can, get messages from spirit. And she didn't know that my son was, had passed. But she starts telling me, I have a message from you from a boy and then, so he's been communicating like that. Or I see kids that look a lot like him when I'm going through. I'm in a bad place, and I look up, and then I see someone like that looks just like him, and then that brings me like joy and happiness. And I was like, oh, that's you. And it's
Okay. All right. Different ways. What are 3 things you've learned, Anna, that you'd like to share with other parents?
Well, what I've learned is well, that it's a process. It's a process, and the healing is it takes for me, I mean, for me personally, it's been like a like a roller coaster. I'm sometimes okay, sometimes I'm not okay, but I try to avoid it, and because if you just sometimes to avoid the pain, but when I open up and let myself feel, I come out on the other side and I feel better. And that's one of the things I've learned, and not to blame myself anymore for what happened, because I used to do that also. I was gonna pick him up on Friday. What if I had not given in? There's no if. I mean, if I just don't do that anymore.
Good.
Yeah.
Good.
Mhm.
Okay. And what are your beliefs about there being a timing and a meaning? And you addressed this some earlier.
Well, I think that somehow Alessandro, since he was born, it was he wasn't meant to be here for a long time. And since the moment he was born, he was just trying to find an exit. But it wasn't, I guess that moment, it wasn't his time. Years after there was another incident, and we almost lost Alessandro, but thankfully we didn't, when he was 15. And then, so I had the fortune to have him another 5 years. When he turned 20, that's when he found his exit, like, okay, I'm done. And he was like everybody would tell me when I met him, he's an old soul trapped in the body of a young man, because he's so wise and knowledgeable, and he was very mature, not very mature for certain things, but very mature for other stuff, like that. I would think that his soul was not supposed to have like a long life experience here on Earth. He was supposed to be here just for a little bit and then go.
Yeah, very well put. And thank you for making that distinction between, he could be a very old soul, even though he's in a child or a young person's body. And I think that's a tough one for some parents to get, at least initially. Well, wonderful interviews. Thank you to all 4 of you for sharing so much love, so much wisdom. People who are watching this, make sure you watch at least twice. Take note. Watch not only what they say, but how they say it, their body language, and so on. A lot of power here, a lot of help and assistance. So thanks very much to all 4 of you again. Parents, if you are struggling, if you're new on this journey, just know that Helping Parents Heal has so many resources. We mentioned them early in the introduction. So reach out. We're here. We have whatever you need, and we'll help you get through this. Well, good night, and God bless you all.
Thank you. Good night too.
Care.
Thanks.
Thank you. Good night.
So much.